Hey everyone, welcome back to the Harbinger VC podcast. Today we interview Yuan Liu, Managing Director at ZhenFund, one of China's top seed funds founded by Xu Xiaoping and Wang Qiang, who are co-founders at New York Stock Exchange listed New Oriental Education, along with Sequoia Capital China. While at ZhenFund, Yuan has invested in some of their top deals, including autonomous driving unicorn Momenta, White Closet, Castbox, 12 Sigma, and more. With Yuan, we'll learn more about ZhenFund's investment focus, fund strategy, and how it differentiates against other funds. We'll explore best practices when it comes to deal sourcing and portfolio management. Yuan also shares with us what trends he's looking at in China and some of the advantages and disadvantages of Chinese teams building startups tackling global markets. Hope you guys enjoy. Yuan, so thanks so much for joining us today. So before we get to ZhenFund and some of the deals that you worked on, could you tell us a little bit more about your story and your background?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Yuan, born and raised in a city called Wuhan, which is like a large city in central China, and went to the States for college at the age of 18. And that was actually my first time to the States. I went to Washington University, which was a small liberal college down in Southern Virginia. Spent 4 years there, and then came out of school, working a couple of places in DC, Texas, in different industries, like on Capitol Hill as an intern, and then in the mutual fund in Dallas, etc. And then moved to Baltimore to work in a fund of funds, a venture capital focused fund of funds called Greenspring Associates, and spent 4 years there. So that's how I initially got into venture. And while at Greenspring, I was responsible for fund direct as well as secondary opportunities across different sectors in the venture capital asset class. So given I was the only Asian in the company, I naturally took on all the Asian manager relationships as well. So that was the time when I was kind of surveying the landscape and looking at what are the emerging managers, venture capital funds in China that might not have caught all the attention of international LPs, and that's actually the same time when ZhenFund was just about to institutionalize to the point that they will absorb external LPs in addition to Bob's own money and Sequoia Capital. So that's how I just got in touch with them, with us now, in the right timing, and I moved back to China in late 2014 and joined ZhenFund when it was like Fund 3. So.
Okay.
And so I've been with ZhenFund for almost 5 years now. Yeah, that's the basic story.
Okay. So when you joined ZhenFund in 2014, how many people were there?
So I think around 10. The investment team is only 4 people.
Okay.
So there are a couple of finance and legal back office staff. So around 10 people. It's quite small.
Okay. Yeah. So how big is the team now, and what fund are you guys on?
So we are about 70. I actually don't have the specific number because we have additions and departures every week, and mostly like additions.
Right.
Yeah. So we have about 70 people now. About 30 investment team professionals. Okay. So offices in the U.S., in Shenzhen, in Shanghai. So I think quite large for an early stage firm now.
Yeah. It is quite a large team, and we're in a ZhenFund office right now. You have an entire building to yourself, with multiple levels. So because usually VCs are, I guess, especially in the US, are a little bit smaller. Can you tell us a little bit more about why ZhenFund has so many employees and such a large investment team, and how does that relate to your strategy, for example?
Sure. So we have a large investment team as well as a large portfolio service team. So in terms of a large investment team of about 30 people, because we have an enormous deal flow. So if we look at our deal funnel, we have about, let's say, more than 200 emails coming to our email inbox alone. Wow. And then we have to sit down with about 20,000 opportunities like founders every year. Which is and we make about 100 investments per year. So it's actually we're responsible for a very large portion of the entire angel startup ecosystem in China. Yep. Because Bob has always been a pioneer and an advocate for entrepreneurship itself and for angel investing. So because of the kind of almost dominant position in angel, so the deal flow is just so large, so have to have a large investment team staff to actually just to handle that.
Right.
And in terms of the portfolio service team, I think it's actually more common in China now than that of the States. that many venture capital firms start to have their in-house agency models, basically have their own finance, legal, PR, GR, all sorts of, or even like event professional and data specialist, etc.
Yeah.
Just to help portfolio companies. So we have a large portfolio service team as well, just to help our portfolio companies of more than 700 companies. So that's the reason why we're so big.
Got it. Okay, cool. And taking a step back, so for early stage fund, there's a number of key success factors. So sourcing is one large part of it. There's deals evaluation, there's the winning a deal, and then there's portfolio management. So I'd love to step through all of those because again, ZhenFund's done massively well over the past number of years, and it's quite unique. So sourcing for early stage fund is a little bit different from a later stage fund. We kind of talked about this last time as well. For a later stage fund, you can kind of work with FAs or financial advisors, work with other VCs that have their best deals and you kind of push them to you. For early stage fund like ZhenFund, you mentioned you have a lot of inbound referrals. So I just want to get a sense of, do you rely on that? Do you have your own sourcing tactics? How do you maximize and optimize this sourcing piece?
Sure. So in terms of sourcing, we kind of view that as two parts, two components, just like other firms, like inbound and outbound. So for angel, actually inbound is perhaps more important than outbound because that was usually the first round the company ever raised capital. Or even there's not even a company, the founder is kind of hesitating, well, should I leave my position at Total and start my own company, or should I just test the water in the market, etc. So you don't know who's going to do the startup. You don't know which of the VPs at Meituan is kind of secretly planning to do their startup, or just talking to his wife or her husband about should I leave my unvested options at the table and then do my thing. So we have to be like a light tower in the dark, right? We don't know who in the dark is going to come out. Actually, inbound is more important. That's why we do so much PR events. And we innovate with different programs and features. So for example, like the room we are in is the Ostrich Club room. Basically, we use this room on weekends for our a special program called Ostrich Club that we did with Sequoia, which attracts senior executives or internet veterans that are maybe still in their job post, about to do their or plotting, thinking about doing a startup, but have not even made up their mind yet. Or have made up their mind but cannot leave their job post for specific reasons. So this is like we view that as a secret society, so that the list of the names does not get exposed ever to the public, and they will feel secure just to come get together on weekends, talk about and have fireside chats with preeminent founders about startups. So this is an example of programs that we design to attract a specific group of people in our inbound sourcing regime, because we don't know who, like which executive would be coming, right? If we do, we would have invited them already. So we can only post a program out and see who signs up. So we do tens of these such programs. So we did like Gen Residence, which specifically targets overseas returnees, which was one of the major component of the first wave of the mobile internet startup, right? So we would go to the schools, like say we would do lectures, speaking events in say MIT, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford. We go there very regularly. We do that in large corporations like Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, and in all those places. And basically, every time we go there, when we speak, especially if Bob speaks, there is a pretty large audience, not just people in the school working at those companies, but also say Chinese in nearby neighborhood. They would just come by to see Bob speak, and just to meet ZhenFund. And we didn't know those people. We didn't know who they are before. Well, some of them are probably like old friends, but this is one of the example of how we would go out, but it's still like inbound. We just go out to do a thing and then attract people to come to us. And then we exchange WeChat, and when they do their startup, they may come to us. So this is also still inbound. So we do all sorts of programs like Ostrich Club, like Gen Residence, in which we bring C returnees back to China for a boot camp sort of startup thing, for them to meet entrepreneurs, startup founders. For each batch lasts about 8 or 9 days, and then we go to all those schools to do the events. So those are all inbound sourcing. Plus our CEO network, we have about 700 portfolio CEOs, and great people tend to stay in cluster, so they would refer deals to us as well.
Yeah.
And for outbound, I think we do things similarly to other firms. We monitor the media. We try to stay up to date with prolific executives leaving their job posts. We would be checking out what they're doing, and then we track like online data in terms of say App Store and other distribution channels, and then we check with the FAs, the intermediaries, on what are the new deals coming out in the market. So, but I think that's what everyone does. And we just try to do it in a more diligent manner.
Right. Makes sense. What about other? I've heard that some funds that are early stage work really closely with later stage funds. But the reason why you talk to later stage funds is because later stage funds would have gone very deep in a particular sector or industry. So at that point, they'll probably know all the key players, and they might know a founder kind of comes out of there. But perhaps the later stage fund's a little bit too big, can't invest in that individual founder, so they might refer that founder to an earlier stage fund. Just something that we came across. Is that something that you guys employ here as well, or?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's something I was doing when I just joined ZhenFund. So when I first came back to China and joined ZhenFund, I was moving from LPs, in the fund world, to early stage angel investing. So I have no deal flow. I don't know all of the keynotes in large corporations. So, but I know all of the VC people. So that's how I initially started. I talked to say the Series A funds or even later stage VCs, and sometimes some deals are too early for them, and maybe there is it's pre-product, and those are not the risks that those guys, the investors, are willing to take and embrace. But they think those will be good fit to us, and then they'll make the intro. So actually historically some of the best deals of ZhenFund was actually introduced by other venture capital firms. They did not do the deal, but referred to us, and we did the deal. That was a feasible idea back then, but I think now it's getting harder because everyone is going so early. Right. Even the mega funds, they would have, like say Sequoia also have their own seed fund, and also you see firms like say GGV, Qiming, right? They're also testing the idea of doing some seed investing. I think as of now, all of the venture firms I can think of, except for a very few names, almost every firm is willing to embrace the product risk. Like they don't care if there's a product, as long as there's a great team. They would be happy to invest. So I think that way, that sourcing way is getting harder than before.
Right. Yeah. There's a sense that we get as well. What about the concept of scouts? Like for example, in the U.S., there's a so-called dorm room fund, right? And I think there's a few others. Sequoia has a scout program in the U.S. It's a concept of having either executives or even students on campus be affiliated with your fund to kind of push deals to you, or push founders to you. Right. Do you guys do that at all in the U.S. or in China?
Yeah, we have a program called Gen Reps. That's also one of the innovations that I mentioned. So we keep thinking, is there any other groups we can cover better? Can we design a program to cover that? And Gen Reps is actually it's short for Gen Representatives. Basically, it's like an ambassador program. We select students that are still active in school to be our ambassador. Basically, our kind of sourcing agent in the ground. And these student representatives, we welcome them to actually join our IC discussion and learn the kind of our methodology of investing, etc. And with their help, we will be able to stay up to date in each of the schools on like any great student leaders coming to do their startup, or what's new in the kind of the emerging young early adopters community, etc. But that was just the schools. I think out of schools, when you speak about the scout program that Sequoia did, I think many of them is actually within large tech corporations, right? The senior executives in that world. That's right. So I think we don't have anything like a scout in internet firms, in tech firms yet. That's something we are thinking about and working on. In terms of say, what sort of power do we delegate, right? What sort of access do we give them as external experts, as advisors? Yeah. So we were thinking, we're brainstorming still as of now on the idea of a more robust advisor and venture partner network.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
something that we should contemplate on. We don't have a viable product yet.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And just moving to the portfolio management side, you mentioned that you have quite a large 投后团队,就是这个 portfolio management. So it seems that, a lot of funds try to differentiate, some try to source better, some try to do better portfolio management such that their existing founders will refer deals to them because they're very much top of mind. Can you tell us about some of the programs that you guys work on for portfolio management?
Sure. So we actually we divide our portfolio management to kind of 3 layers. The first layer is like the individualistic. So the prolific founder, Bob and Victor, personally devoting time to the portfolio companies. Like Victor, Victor does not look at new deals. He devotes his time to our existing portfolio companies, basically talking to founders in their inflection points. And he will be taking, say, the Gen residence candidates to visit portfolio companies and have a communication session with a good session with the founder. So Bob spends like lots of time talking to our existing company portfolio to help on very macro or very key decision making sort of discussion based on his lengthy experience dealing with corporates and young founders, basically. So on the second level, as each deal manager, say if I did a deal, if I did my own deal, I'm on board of the company, and then every deal manager is responsible for keeping a regular key contact point with the founder, just to we don't call that, like, say, people say manage the company like 管公司. We don't call that manage. It's basically like our way of, say, helping out the company and stay in contact. Because we feel that with very competent founders, usually it's more of a learning. It's more of a learning session from us to learn from the founders. We just try to stay up to date and see what can we help, and usually it's with introductions to other, say, a potential hire,
right,
or to other venture capital firms of future fundraising, etc. And on the third layer, we have the functional, very specific functional staff like finance, legal, PR to help on different aspects of the company. So we will be hosting programs like say overseas trips. For example, we're taking a few India focused, like say Chuhai, going overseas sort of companies to India. We did that with Indonesia before. We did a content trip to Los Angeles. So we took a few content-related portfolio companies and take them to visit, say, Michelle Pham, YouTube, Netflix, all those great leading content companies in the U.S. And then we have office hours for legal, finance sort of consultations. So our team will be helping the portfolio companies for pro bono basis, for such questions. And then we have Gen Breakfast, which is a breakfast session with Bob. So each time we would have, say, 8 founders, and for a Saturday breakfast, and they will be coming together. Usually they're in similar stage, in similar sector, and then so chances are they're facing similar questions, problems, and it's like a consultation together with Bob. And then we have our Gym Masters program, for example, which is exclusively open to our portfolio CEOs, in which we invite what we call the big shots, like the founders of companies north of $10 billion, or super investors to share their insights to our portfolio CEOs. Those are all like examples of how the value-add programs we provide to our founder.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know. It seems like quite a bit. Whoever gets funding from ZhenFund gets a comprehensive package, huh? But what do you think is the biggest driver of portfolio management value? So, for example, is it helping them with fundraise? Is it helping them hire quality people? Is it just the expertise that you guys share? I mean, what would you say is the greatest bang for the buck?
Well, my personal opinion is that although many venture capitalists would share their stories of discussing, say, firm strategy with a founder, I think usually it would be very rare that the investor would be even a more excellent visionary than a founder in that domain, right? So although we also discuss firm strategy with the founder, what we do just to offer a complementary perspective from an investor's angle, because our advantage is that we meet so many founders across different sectors, so we probably get a better macro sense in the startup ecosystem than the founder specifically in one sector.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the founder would be the one to have the will, right? So we don't try to be so presumptuous as to assume that our idea for the future strategy will be more superior to that of the founder. So I think the key impact for us is still related to fundraising and hiring.
Yeah.
In terms of fundraising, that's something that we are very familiar with. We have 700 plus companies. Each company has gone through different fundraising cycles. Some are like, say, several billions now, which raised maybe 12 rounds in the past several years.
Yeah.
Some of them had a difficult time raising Series A, right? So they're in different stages and status. And we have witnessed and accompanied them through. So we have a lot of experience dealing with different investors, and also we work with every venture firm in the market. We would be happy to advise, say, on the timing, on the tactics, on the methodology of fundraising, on the materials to be prepared and presented, on FA selection, anything. So I think fundraising is one of the key aspects we help, and also hiring is also another one, because we're constantly meeting people, and sometimes those guys are not. Some of the guys we met are not meant to be CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders. Then they might not fit the founder criteria, but they are just excellent co-founders or candidates. So we always refer such candidates to our portfolio companies to join a company. We persuade them to join a company, which is going to be a rocket ship anyway, right? Instead of doing your own company. So we do a lot of that as well.
Right. Do you guys have like a internal CRM or some sort of tool to collect all those names, kind of efficiently match them?
We actually don't, but that's something that we're also working on. So our IT system is so it's actually not difficult to devise a CRM. The problem just we're so constantly meeting people. Everyone is so active.
Yeah.
People just get lazy. When you don't have an incentive, people don't. Everyone just don't feel like logging everything in. So we don't even use CRM to track every single deal we look at every year, because that'll be like 20,000 deals. And if you write a summary and a memo for each one, that'll be a lot enormous work. So we actually don't have a CRM to track everyone we met.
Right.
But that's actually a good idea. That's something we should think of a way to do.
Yeah. For example, like I remember I met an investor in Indonesia. It was part of Insignia Venture Partners. But basically, the guy, I gave him my business card, and then like the next day, I got an email from him. There was a picture of my business card and like a link to some other stuff. I think it's because he used Evernote or something comparable, where he just took a picture of my business card and linked it to some other content. So it's very automated. There's like some pretty simple ways to collect information, but also to kind of keep the dialogue and the interaction.
Right.
Yeah. They were super efficient. It's pretty interesting.
I'll be happy to look into that. That's something that we should do.
Yeah. So next time we see like a ZhenFund analyst or investor, right? Like scan everything, take a picture. Cool.
And one more question about portfolio management, providing advisory to your portfolio companies.
As the company gets bigger and more investors come in, I wonder how your role changes. Either as a board member or as an investor. And secondly, related to that, what kind of value add services do later stage funds offer as well?
Sure. So I think one of the great benefits for of going in company early is that you're always the most trusted investor, supporting the entrepreneur in his most fragile times. So at that time, maybe the founder was he just started the journey himself, and there is he has very few friends to talk to, very few guidances. So I think that would be it's like people tend to remember their puppy love, right? So that's a great perk, that you're always the most trusted advisor, and I think and that's also in a time the founder is least experienced in fundraising. Like there is very little knowledge about fundraising, things that investor happen to have a lot of. Typically, before a company raises Series A, before they get next round of financing after us, the hand-in-hand session is it's more frequent. So maybe we'll talk to the founder on a weekly basis on WeChat. It's meet up for lunch on a monthly basis, and then after they got to Series A or maybe got a Series B, the new investors come in and they would have a smaller portfolio than we do, they have put more money into the company, so they worry more than we do. And because they manage less companies, so the per capita time they allocate to each company is actually more. They will be likely be more devoted to say the hiring and the key strategic relationship building sort of operatives than we do. So I think our support to the founder. A lot of times is spiritual, right? He has a company to. Well, literally, he has a company, but I mean, we are his company, right? In his lonely times.
Yep.
And then we help him through the difficult times to get to next round financing, so he will have more security, and then a bigger investor who put in more money and more time. So I think the role is very different.
Yep. Gotcha. All right, so that's a really good sense of ZhenFund in terms of how you guys approach investing from sourcing to portfolio management. Let's talk a little bit more about your experience to date as well. You invested in a number of really interesting companies. So a few that come to mind are Castbox, White Closet, ERSN, and also Momenta. Could you tell us a little bit more? Can you pick maybe one or two of the investments and share a little bit more about your experience with that?
Yeah, sure. So I can talk about Castbox since we're doing a podcast.
That's right.
So that will be an example of our investment philosophy. So ZhenFund differentiates from other investment firms in the sense that we're extremely totally founder centric, in which it means that we are investing people. Like say if there is a second tier team with a great direction or a great product traction, versus say like a top tier team with inferior product traction, we would always go with a better team.
Yeah.
And I think many firms claim to have that philosophy, but when the reality actually emerges, we'll say, well, product's better DAU, we have better revenue, is leading the market. Yeah. Even if you think the founder is not as strong as the other founder, people tend to choose the company with more visibility, with more certainty, which is better product, better data.
Yeah.
So we try to find the next generation rockstar founders, but we never know. We never try to predict what's the next big thing and then what is the next hot thing. We believe that the best founders would always be visionaries to be the first detectors of the trend. They should be trend makers. They should be creating the trend. And if we as angel, try to dive into the hot trend and say who's the market leader in the hot trend, it will be too late for us. So Castbox is an example. I think audio is I wouldn't say it's the hottest trend, but I think audio is like many venture capital firms are after now, right? So you see reports from say Andreessen Horowitz saying audio will be gigantically important, and then many venture capitalists would say, hey, video is so crowded now, and then audio is more passive. It's more passive context, and then it's more and it's also less competent. You spend more time, but it's not as crowded, and so there is a lot of value to be captured there. But then when we invested in Castbox in 2016, audio is basically considered to be a very niche, very complementary segment, and we didn't know whether audio will be big enough at that time. We didn't have all those big acquisitions that happened in the recent year. But when the founder Rini came to us, she had I think 4 years experience working at Google in I think AdMob in the sales team, and then spent 2 years in Ireland, 2 years in the Japan office of Google, and then before that she was a psychology major, and then in Peking University, and then she learned coding herself. Right. And while there, she was helping with some of outsourcing projects. She was the front-end engineer after she taught herself coding, and then was taking on projects to make money. And then she joined a company called Yumeng as I think the 7th employee as a front-end engineer, and then to Google. And then I left Google to do a startup. I think she sold her house as a kind of, so she self-funded her seed investment to create the product. So when she came to us, there was actually one product. It's a bit crappy. She said she wrote her first line of the code herself. So it was a audio aggregator I think that was already supporting like 12 languages or something. But it was pure it was pure crawling technology. So she would be crawling content from other platforms. Very primitive, but already getting some early users, some traction. Maybe I think less than 10,000 at that time. But if you just look at the product, there's no way you'd be investing, right? It's a very, very primitive, very rudimentary product. But she was so confident, she was so convicted about the future of podcast and audio, and also she was so devoted about entrepreneurship itself. Like she went all in into it, and with her experience in at Google in mobile product, I think she's definitely expert in mobile product, and also has a team, which we also put a lot of emphasis on. So she has a team that has known her for a while, worked with her at Google. So it was the perfect story that we are after, all-in founder with a team that are long-term acquaintances, going into a direction that the founder has true authenticity in. So at the first meeting, we signed the term sheet, $1 million for 20%. So I remember, I think I met her on Thursday at 5 o'clock. We signed the term sheet at 5:30. That was the fastest process I experienced at that time.
Yeah.
I think the record was later broken. There was an even faster decision-making mechanism later, but at that time, that was like super fast decision-making. And the company now, I think they have 20 or 30 million users in total. Daily active is also in millions. So it's they went a long way from say 10,000 to millions now.
Right.
So I think as of now, I think it's a great call that we made a fast investment.
Yeah. Right. No, I've heard good things about Castbox, but just for the audience understanding, so it's basically a podcatcher, right? So it has a different from, let's say, Himalaya or Apple Podcasts or Google Play's various versions.
Right. So many people use the Apple podcast service, but on Android it's actually it's much less developed. And even on the iPhone product, actually many of the features, say if you want to accelerate or if you want to do in-text searching, it's actually not that easy.
Right.
So also the interactive features for the podcast for the posters to interact with the audience is actually the user experience is not that good either. So podcasts try to elevate on those aspects for both Android and iOS platforms.
Gotcha, Yuan. And just to clarify for the audience, what do you mean by the interactive piece that's in Castbox?
Sure. So if you use the regular podcast system, say on iOS, we post something and the audience also leave comment. Actually, as the poster, you actually cannot directly interact with the fans, right? So you cannot say, hey, I love your content, and they respond, hey, thanks for the reply, this and that. And then there are also always it's always good for the poster to actually get a feedback directly from the listener, and then the more interactive, the better engagement.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Cool. And then another question for you, Yuan, is around just China market, and what are some of the opportunities and trends that you're seeing? Could you just share a little bit more about your views there?
Sure. So what I've noticed and observed in the market recently is that what we call the low-hanging fruits are basically over. So there are more and more capex heavy sort of startups, which is very contrarian to. Which is contrary to the classic venture capital belief that we should be investing something asset light and then super scalable at low cost. That would still be ideal to date, but it's not getting harder because the penetration for mobile is very high already, and then the fight for the user engagement time is intensified to the point that it's getting so difficult for a startup to compete against ByteDance and Tencent. So a pure online mobile product is actually getting harder to be created and getting viral in our opinion. And then we recently we're seeing more and more models that have a very heavy offline component, say fresh grocery delivery, etc. So I think that's one of the hot trends in China, basically to enable what do we call community Legion leaders, say a stay-home mom, being the dispatch center for grocery goods on a daily basis. So she'll be providing the information to her community, her circle, and also fulfilling the logistics on a door-to-door basis. That's actually one of the hot trend in the startup community now.
Yeah, and I see a number of those companies, and I believe Truework Ventures investing company called Xu Xiaoping, which does something along those lines. I think it's the concept is community-based group buying. Right? So that's interesting because if you have the mothers, the stay-at-home moms, essentially knowing everyone in the community, then they can basically help attract users, right? So the acquisition cost becomes really low, almost zero.
Like traffic,
玩流量，对， just play with user acquisition,
right.
Getting it. Okay.
Right. So offline is one of the hot trends, and then there also with the elevation of technology, we are seeing more and more AI-powered products in different sectors. In healthcare, for example, yesterday we met a deal which was trying to use AI to better design chips itself. So the chip design process is a very lengthy mechanical process that is also very heavily dependent on the designer's experience. And then there is a company that we just met and was trying to basically automate the process by using AI. For example, we're seeing a lot of RPA products in the market right now. So
what's RPA?
RPA is it's called robotics processing automation, which was already a hot trend in the US since a couple of years ago. And then there are more and more companies employing robots in the enterprise sector. Not just the hardware robots, but actually the process automation. So office automation has always been very mature, but the cognitive robotics have not been applied to such automations yet. So this is also something that we're also looking at the market. So basically, this is a irreversible trend, right? More automation, more like a smarter AI. So we're not likely to see things going backwards, right? Less automation and less smart mechanisms. So this is what we see the power of AI. So we've done deals, including, say, Chengdu Zhiyao, which was empowering AI to do drug discovery, and the ExoPi, which was empowering AI also for drug discovery. That was for the crystallization of the medicine. And we've done, say, AI-empowered image detection for, say, lung cancer at healthcare devices, 12 Sigma. So we're seeing more technologies being used in sectors that were previously kind of isolated from the startups world. Yeah, that's also one hot trend. And also we're seeing Chinese companies going overseas, trying to export the experiences. After all those fierce competition between the mobile products and offline products in China, to try to leverage the experience to export the business model to the US. I think it started with Mobike model being exported to Indonesia, Singapore, even in the US. And then you see ByteDance as a large corporation going to all over the world, right? TikTok. And then I think under those umbrella, there will be like smaller products, both online, offline, going to different countries to say Southeast Asia, Africa, Europe.
Yeah. And for that last bit around Chu Xiaoping, the kind of go overseas deals. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a Chinese team working on those opportunities? After you. Yeah,
sure. So I think the advantage is very obvious in the sense that, like I said, the competition is so fierce. So it's like literally like a veteran team. Right? People gone through wars and survived.
Right.
And now they are going overseas. So mobile product has always been one of the strongest aspects of all Chinese startup sectors. So I think Chuhai going overseas started with gaming. That was a decade ago, right? It was like gaming and then the mobile tools, say the Clean Master and then battery management sort of tools. And then it got heavier in the sense that say when Musical.ly was created by a Chinese team in the US, or when TikTok is going overseas, there is a more cultural element to the product. So previously, like games and tools are more universal, right? But if we want to do short videos or even Castbox, right? Castbox is a purely Chuhai project. Like there are zero user, or maybe some users with VPN, but zero user in China mainland.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone is in, say, America, Southeast Asia, Europe and Korea. We're seeing like this type of product getting better odds and better traction overseas, which was not feasible before when the Chinese team had little knowledge of the foreign market.
Yeah.
And then when we see, say, the Didi taxi model going to be exported to, say, Africa, and then let's see, say the scooter model going to Indonesia, that's very heavy offline.
Yeah.
So so the Chinese entrepreneurs are challenging more and more difficult tasks in terms of doing a startup. And I think that the challenge is very obvious as well. You have to know the domestic culture, be able to hire locally. So I think that is something that the founders typically would not have experienced even when they were competing in a fierce battle in China.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge they would have.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I mean, I think there's a lot of advantages for Chinese founder doing 出海项目, but I think probably the hardest thing is to hire and manage and retain the employees properly.
And also a challenge is actually they're likely to have two offices, like bi-coastal office.
Right.
They have a development team in China and then like a BD team in a different country. So to manage the communication barrier, etc. So that would be difficult too.
For sure. I mean, at Chinese companies, the way that the CEOs or founders manage teams also varies, but in some cases, it's kind of more top down, right? So like the founders tend to be extremely impressive, and not saying that middle management's not, but in a lot of cases, like they just hire very quickly. So like the turnover is pretty fast. They hire pretty fast, and let's say some of the middle managers. I mean, if you're really like smart and talented in China, you might want to start your own company, right? You want to start your own business. So the style is a little bit different. Whereas I feel like in the U.S. the founders tend to really emphasize culture. They tend to emphasize that, hey, I want to hire the best people because then they can take ownership and kind of manage their teams. So it's a little bit more fluid. Just something that I noticed while in China. So I figure for Chinese companies, when I say Latin America or other places, it'd be really interesting to see which model works out better. Is it a U.S. team that goes out at Latin America? Is it a Chinese team that goes to Latin America and wins? I mean, not just Latin America, but other countries as well. In my opinion, I think the hardest thing is to hire properly and make sure to incentivize them the right way. So it should be interesting.
Right, and also I think the domestic competition is one aspect we should look after as well.
Yeah.
For example, in Southeast Asia, I think there's actually less startups and less engineers, so the competition is not as strong compared to, say, in the US or, say, India.
Yeah.
Right? So if we look at historical data, actually very few U.S. startups when they do a China JV, very few of them worked.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because first there are so many local startups in China, and also the Chinese system is kind of self-enclosed. It's not as open as that of, say, the U.S. So if you go to a country like, say, Japan, China, Russia, I suppose it's a very self-contained. If you're a foreigner in China, it's very easy to tell. That's what I'm saying, right? So, but in the U.S., it's very hard to tell whether you're a foreigner. Because of that, I think for a foreign company to do startup in China, it's actually more difficult. Say compared to a Chinese founder trying to do startup in the U.S., the other way.
Yeah.
And but in Indonesia, you see many, say, German companies like the Rocky Internet people.
Yeah.
I think they did a pretty good job in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially because there's just much less domestic resistance.
Yeah. I mean, in Southeast Asia, you definitely see a lot of Chinese founders there, or even India. Let's say the app store for like social apps you got for top 10 is like half of them are Chinese, which is really, really interesting. So Yuan, thanks so much for your time. I think you probably have another meeting to run off to, so I appreciate coming onto your podcast.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Adam.
No worries.